Now this all ties together with the other thing that I wanted to mention because you were talking about Shaggy and Shaggy worked at Floyd's, and so did you
Yeah.
see and hear? I know you're not keeping up with Rick Beato regularly, and neither am I. But the other,
I saw you had Tremonti on there.
he had Tremonti on there. Did you listen to that yet,
No, I haven't.
dude? You'll enjoy it. I really think you'll enjoy that interview. It was so interesting to hear all the backstories of Tallahassee and Floyd's, and working with John Kurtzwig, who I know because I work with him on the Eli stuff, and he
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
produced Your Captain Speaking, and he produced the Georgia Honeys, and so I know Kurtzwig, and so hearing all these stories, and Beato knows John Kurtzwig back in the day, not like they were best buds or anything, but they've communicated and talked about stuff before, and dude, Mark Tremonti is really interesting to listen to. I think one of the things that you're going to be caught off guard by, if have you ever heard him talk? Because I hadn't.
I don't know. I know
Well,
he
he
sings. I've heard him say. I've seen his band. I've seen Tremonti. I've
y-
seen him.
okay.
I've heard him like talk in the mic in between songs at a show.
Well, no, so this is fun because it's Beato's thing, dude. They go down gear talk, and Tremonti is crazy into amps and guitars, but in particular amps.
Yeah.
And I think you'll really enjoy the conversation because it just goes on. They're like 30, 40 amps deep on conversation in that one interview. Just like I use this, and then for this record we use this, and then we like to combine these, and we'd put the mic. They talk about mics and placement and everything. It's really a fun conversation. So you got all the backstory stuff about Tallahassee that we can relate with, and then you also got this deep dive into amps and gear talk with guitars, and it's a
I
hell
got
of a
hell yeah.
interview.
I got a 4 hour drive with Kyron tomorrow. So
Yeah,
we'll cue it up, man.
I was caught off guard by how fun of a conversation it was. I was like, "Oh, this is cool. I've never heard him talk," and it's. And we also have the tie-in too because not only all right, Mark Tremonti was the guitar player for Creed, and then they changed to Alter Bridge basically,
The
and
band.
then
Yeah, it was like they did the Days of the New thing. They
yeah,
86
they kind of
and
changed the
started.
singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he did Tremonti, and then Creed's actually touring again right now. I think they're working on a new album that they're putting out.
I
But
did.
during that break, our guy Brett Hessla was playing bass for Creed at shows for what did he do that for like a couple of years or
Yeah, so he did it for everything after Human Clay. Um, I want to because Creed
Brett
came out.
Hessla being the guy that recorded our Cue the Muses album, also the frontman for Virgos Merlot and
Dark New
Dark
Day.
New Day.
Hmm?
And he might make an appearance in the Cue the Muses next year because we've
I was just talking to
yeah
him the other day. I was just talking to Brett. Yes. It's
yeah
like, he did. I think Creed came out with their first album, My Own Prison, and then they had Human Clay came out, and then Brian Marshall left. And when
right.
Brian Marshall, the bassist for Creed, left, Brett was the touring bassist. I
There you
understand.
go.
Brett's got a couple of the Creed albums on the wall. He's got the Creed album
Yeah,
up as
that's
well.
wild, man. So it's all so interconnected. And then one, I'll close out with this because it's kind of interesting. So we were talking about just recording and music and stuff, and like, um, Tremonti did a very, very abstract thing, and I think you know about this. I think you might have told me about it actually, that he did an entire album that was Frank Sinatra.
Yeah. He's got the Sinatra voice, man.
Dude, it's crazy. And so he talks about that whole backstory of how that happened and what the recording process was like because he was working with the actual original Sinatra players, I believe, in the studio to
Really?
record that album. And he had to get Sinatra's like not only blessing, but legally they had to get it worked out. And they judged his voice if he was good enough to do it. So he actually had to have Sinatra sign off on that. It was acceptable to do it. And the way that those recordings work, because of those old school musicians like that, he said every song on there is somewhere between 1 to 3 takes. If anything went wrong in the recording, they just wanted to do the whole song over again.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's sick. And you listen to the quality of the recording, and it sounds so old recorded. It sounds so perfectly recorded
They
to pay
did.
tribute to that old sound. And one more interesting thing about recording, just in general, guys, because I find this interesting, the question mark of using the click or not. And, the original Creed, the first two or three, I think just the first two albums, no click was involved. They just did it without a click. And I think it's interesting because I remember as a guitar player when we did our first recording in Kill Clouseau, my band back in the day, we went to the studio and we had to get ready to record on a click. And I had really done so little work with a metronome, and I wasn't the guitar player that I am at this point by any stretch. But the songs were hard, and they did change time. I'm sorry, they changed tempo. I mean, this
Yeah.
is why you'd use a click as if to keep you so you do keep a tempo. And there's a pretty interesting conversation that takes place between Tremonti and Beato just about like to use the click, to not use the click, and the difference of having feel or not feel. And at this point, Tremonti uses a click all the time. He's gotten used to it. It definitely makes it, if you want to continue to do edits and punch-ins and all that, absolutely you want to use the
Yeah.
click.
Yeah.
But overall, there is something that happens about the magic of just knowing that he said he'd flat out just rather use a tempo map at this point. But
It's like you
that's
get so used to it. You get
yeah,
I feel like you once you start going down the road of using the metronome, using the click when you're songwriting, you get used to it. And
yeah,
I feel like that happens when you're doing a lot of writing remotely. You're not getting together with your drummer in the room on a weekly day-to-day basis and rocking
yeah.
through songs. You're really doing a lot of remote writing, bouncing ideas back and forth, and you really have to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're sending stuff back and forth, and I've got that metal song I've referenced twice now that I'm really excited about that I can't. I do want to show you because it's the most like it's proggy, but it's the most old school metally sound power chordy thing and it's in E. It's just in regular E tuning. We can do it in drop tuning. That's fine. I just mean that it's
We
not in
can
a
do
drop D.
we can do it in E. We can do
Well,
it
I
in
mean, however it works out, but it's just like one of the funnest things that I've ever written, and I'm still closing the gap on a couple of parts that are just technically hard, but it's so fun to get it down. But there's absolutely a tempo change that happens in this chorus line that I have because I was trying to get it to work with a click where I had no tempo map, and I'm like, how do I think this even works here? And then I'd play it without the click, and I'm like, it works. I know this works. What does the tempo need to go to? So we got to figure it out, but there's
yeah.
definitely a
Tempo
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 drop.
change tempo changes are super easy. They're
Yeah.
not bad. We did a couple in
Yeah.
Dave's last night's stuff.
Yeah. Nice.
We did it throughout the song, and we can figure that out.
Yeah. And we did
Later,
it in Kill Clouseau back in the day. That actually broke. That's how we broke the computer at Lee Dias's studio and lived at his house for a week while he ordered a new computer and came in. But it was a song called Defection, and it had a tempo map that we had to get programmed into it. And for whatever reason, when he was like dialing in those numbers, his computer cracked, and then we spent 2 days of him troubleshooting, and then he eventually ordered a computer. We lived in his house. He hosted us for a few days, and
nice.
then we finally his computer came. We recorded the album. That was when we recorded our full album with him.
That's awesome.
So tempo maps are they're there.
Killed
Yeah,
it. Killed his computer.
Defection, Harmonia.
I
All
think
right,
I think I've had that same thing happen before. Like
no
doing
shit.
too many tempo changes in Pro Tools, programming it in, and it just
Really
it spazzed out. Yeah, it didn't crash my whole
weird.
computer, but it has crashed the session doing that
Interesting.
before.
And he
Yeah,
was using Cubase, so this might be something about DAWs, digital audio workstations that
it might
and
be.
tempo maps. Maybe there's something that doesn't
It
jive.
might
I
be.
don't know. I
I've
don't
done it.
know.
I've done it recently, and it's not that bad. I feel like sometimes it spazzes out, and it wants to alter it just a little bit when you start doing multiple tempos. Like instead of 120 switching to 135, it'll switch to like 134,999, like small increments.
Mm,
I didn't make the adjustment, but it does it. And it's
interesting.
like, why are you doing that? What are you doing?
Huh.
Just wait, stop thinking for yourself and just do what I tell you to,
Yeah,
computer.
do what I say,
Do what
Harmonia.
I
Do what I say. Dude, Great conversation. It's really great getting to talk to you again. It's been a while. We'll get some guests on here. You got the show coming up. So
Yep.
unfortunately, this is going to come out probably on the day. Well, maybe it'll come out on the morning of the show, and some people catch wind of it that way.
Yeah.
Because if they don't hear it here, there's going to be nobody at your show.
Nobody's coming. I mean, Core sold out a show 2 years ago. I don't know if they can do
Yeah.
it again. It's been
Oh man, you guys are going to sell it out for sure, man.